What is this? The St. Canard Files. Ooh, a podcast about that do-gooder Darkwing Duck? Blech. Talk about a waste of airspace. If I had my way, this podcast would be about me, Nega Duck. So take that, and everyone would have to pay to listen to it. Yeah, or face the consequences.
Okay, first of all, how cool was that we got Jim Cummings to do Negaduck? The answer is super cool. And secondly, welcome to the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. We're your hosts, Mike Russo and
Tiffany Silverbraun.
How's it going, Tiff?
Pretty good.
Oh, that's wonderful. As we're recording this, I'm in quarantine once again from work because another one of my students got it. And since I've never had it, and I'm vaccinated but not boosted, I was sent home. So, hey, okay, 4-day weekend. I'm not complaining. I'd rather be at work. But it is.
I was going to say, I think we might be the last two people on Earth.
I asked my boss yesterday if I'm the last person in the building who doesn't get it. Can I have a party? I feel like I'm the last person in the whole planet who hasn't gotten this yet. Knock on wood. Yeah, you can hear me knocking on wood. But yeah. So before we get into today's issue, Boom Darkwing Duck number 10, second part of FOWL Disposition, we figured let's talk a little bit about YouTube. We both have some favorite YouTube channels we figured we'd talk about a little bit. And of course, the St. Canard Files is on YouTube, so we definitely spend a lot of time there too. And maybe by talking about our favorite channels, we might give you guys some recommendations of other things to check out when you're not listening to us. So we figured I'll list a few that I like, and Tiffany will list a few that she likes. And yeah, that's a good way to kill 10 minutes. This is the third episode we're recording this week, so we're a little punch drunk. So the first YouTube channel I've subscribed to that I really do enjoy is called The Funkland, which is its bread and butter used to be lots of Disney park stuff, and it still kind of is. And they really do their research, but they also have ongoing series where they really take longer deep dives. And what I really enjoy is when they do Defunctland TV, like half-hour deep dives into old TV shows. They've done a whole bunch of stuff. The Buzz Lightyear of Star Command show, one of the Crap Brothers shows, Zuma Mafoob, which I didn't watch, but my daughter loves a newer show, a Wildcrats. So that was really fascinating to watch that video. But what they did a few years ago that I absolutely loved and I highly recommend is a multi-part Jim Henson retrospective from the very beginning, the old Sam and Friends days in the 50s, all the way to his death. And short of reading his biography, which I have and I own, and it's a really great read, this is a fantastic way to learn about not only Henson, but the Muppets. It's going to take maybe 3-4 hours of your time, but I totally recommend it. Have you seen that?
No.
You need to see it, Tiff. The last episode jumps back and forth between the details of his funeral and a Muppet special that came out a few months later where the Muppets learn he died. So, yeah, the Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson was a special where they're trying to put on a show without Kermit, and it's celebrating this guy named Jim Henson. They've never heard of him. Right before they go on with their usual Muppet Show nonsense, they find letters from fans saying how much they miss Jim, and that's when they find out he passed away. Very heartbreaking special. Super, super recommend it. It isn't on Disney Plus. So YouTube it, guys. It's really great. You guys know how much I love the Muppets. So Defunctland, great channel. I love it. Video games, I love video games, but mainly just Nintendo video games. I have a Switch. I don't play a lot of other stuff. I don't play Xbox. Never owned an Xbox. I use my PlayStation for Blu-rays, but I love Nintendo. My favorite Nintendo channel is Arlo. I don't know if any of our listeners know who Arlo is. Funny enough, it's kind of Muppety. Arlo is quote unquote a Muppet. The character is a blue kind of Grover-like Muppet, but don't let that fool you. His opinions on Nintendo are absolutely fantastic. I love this guy. He's really great. He'll do long, deep dives into new games. He'll talk about controversies, sorry. All sorts of great stuff. He's definitely one of those reviewers who, I know it's a character, but his opinions are real and sincere. And it's definitely my favorite video game channel. So that's Arlo. The last one, being a huge Simpsons fan, is called The Real Jims. And it's Simpsons only. All of his content is Simpsons. He'll do episode retrospectives. He'll do the top 10 episodes for different seasons. I think he's on season 10 or 11, which is where my interest starts to drop off, but whatever. And he'll do histories on various characters. He'll analyze mysteries of the show. I mean, the show's been on 33 years, most of it not even great, but it's still interesting. I love The Simpsons that much. It's one of my favorite shows, and The Simpsons is one of those things, Tiff, that I don't get tired of marathoning. I can get tired of Darkwing, I'll be totally honest. I can't watch Darkwing over and over again. But I think I've watched season 4 of The Simpsons 3 times in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I can marathon Simpsons too.
If I'm sick, it goes on. If I can't sleep, it goes on. If I'm home from work, it goes on. Seasons 1 through 8, there's not a single bad episode, except for like one clip show episode that I can't stand. But that's just a clip show.
Who likes clip show episodes?
Simpsons did some pretty good clip show episodes. It's the one where they talk about lost loves. And like Marge is telling the entire family about the time she almost cheated on Homer. How is that not traumatic? It's an episode that's so bad the audio commentary doesn't even discuss it. Those are like my top 3 YouTube channels. There are a few more I like. But I want you to have a chance to talk about your favorites. So go ahead. Which YouTube channels are you into?
Yeah, so I watch a lot of YouTube. I would say there's a few categories that I'm really into. So I like, cinephile channels, and for those I like, the pretty basic ones like Nostalgia Critic and Saber Spark and Cold Crash Pictures, which is more, I guess, a little more political. I like Jose. He talks about mainly, not necessarily movies, but he talks about TV shows, sitcoms. And,
Jose, he does like 2-hour like discussions on. I just watched his Cheers and Golden Girl episodes.
Oh yeah.
I've seen every Golden Girl episode, but I'm not too familiar with Cheers, and now I want to watch it.
Yeah, same here. I didn't really like Cheers that much when I was a kid, so it made me watch it.
And I definitely liked how he really discussed how we should even assess the Cosby Show these days. That was a good episode too.
Yeah.
What else?
Paparina, who does all Nickelodeon stuff. And
but let's clarify, he does Nickelodeon in chronological order.
Yeah.
And his criteria is if whatever was airing got an entry in TV Guide, he's discussing it.
Yeah.
And he's not even out of the 80s yet.
And I think he's younger too.
Yeah.
But very knowledgeable and thorough.
I want to see what he has to say about Ren and Stimpy since he's younger.
And yeah, horror ones like there's someone I like, Possessed by Horror, who's like she likes more modern horror movies, which aren't really my thing. It's not really my era. but it's interesting because, you know, I'm not going to seek it out like I do other things. I like some art channels like Emily Artful,
Mm-hmm.
Casey Golden, who's great, Lavender Town, and Drawfee, which is kind of like a comedy art channel, which is hilarious, where it's basically people send suggestions of things for them to draw and they play these little drawing games. It's
Oh,
great.
cool.
Yeah, and then I like comedy commentary shows that are like, I don't know, more for a general audience. And that would be like Elvis the Alien, Cody Ko, Curtis Connor, Jarvis Johnson, and Lindsay Ellis, although I think she doesn't have her channel anymore.
Something happened to Lindsay Ellis. I don't.
Yeah.
It seems very, very weird. I haven't looked into it, but I do like her. I do like her commentaries, especially when she really analyzes the Disney stuff, because
Yeah.
she's very fair about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's kind of disappeared, hasn't
Yeah.
she? Something happened.
Yeah, and then there's like some random ones that I really like John Solo, who talks about all like the history of fairy tales, and what is it called? His show's called Messed Up Origins, where he talks about like the origins of different famous fairy tales and stuff, or myths. And yeah, he gets really in depth. And let's see, Sideways, he's like a music guy. He gets really into like music theory and concepts. He's really good.
Oh, I know Sideways.
Yeah, I love him.
Didn't he do like a video about how the Goofy movie is like the best Disney musical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's see, I like Let's Read, which is kind of it's like a horror story channel. I think one of my main things that I like in YouTube videos is the long format. Most of them are all really long format.
Yeah, if I'm looking for something to kill time in the car on my commute and I hit a long YouTube video, I know it's always going to be worth it.
Yeah. And then Kids React.
Oh, those are funny.
Yeah. And it's really funny now because we watch it with kids. And their reactions to those reactions are hilarious.
That's great. So
yeah, there's many more, but that's all I'll talk about right now.
Well, you gave me a bunch I want to check out. I hope our listeners discover something this way too. I mean, there's a treasure trove of like amazing stuff and complete garbage on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find it took me a long time to find the stuff I watch. Notice I didn't mention a single thing Godzilla. And there's a reason for that. So yeah, maybe next time we'll talk about our favorite podcasts or something. This was a really good idea. So let's move on to The Terror That Flaps in the Night, issue 10. We got two covers again. This time we have an interesting scenario where our two covers are extremely similar, because on both we have a front shot of Steelbeak looking very threatening. And one was done by Silvani. The other one was done by Amy Meberson. Tiffany, can you describe cover A? In more detail than I just did, obviously.
Cover A has Steelbeak in the bottom center with a stick of dynamite in his hand, and he has FOWL High Command behind him and a glowy kind of floating shadow of Cthulhu or DUCKTHULU.
He's also wearing brass knuckles.
Yeah. And Darkwing is confused in front of him.
Holding the gas gun.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, cover B, what's that cover look like?
Cover B has, it's mostly Steelbeak in the background. He's holding a giant cartoon bomb, which is lit, and with a smirk on his face. And in front is kind of a sassy Darkwing walking forward with the gas gun in his hand.
So very, very similar. And you said it while we were talking about the covers before we went on mic, that you don't like to be critical of other people's artwork. I totally, totally get it. But the problem is we have two covers with Steelbeak looking right at the camera, right at the reader, and it just illustrates how James Silvani just nailed Steelbeak, and Meberson didn't quite get there. Like, I feel like her Steelbeak needs another pass.
Yeah. I think
not.
the problem with the second one is more like it's just done, it seems like a lot in her style and not, exactly like the style of the comic book or the show.
Darkwing's not bad. Although he's got these come hither eyes, these bedroom eyes that I'm not loving. And so does Steelbeak, really. But I definitely do love Silvani's cover A. That would make a cool poster.
Yeah, I love that.
Didn't a DUCKTHULU end up on a t-shirt recently?
I don't know.
I know there's a Hot Topic shirt that I think has DUCKTHULU on it, which is
awesome.
Which is awesome, but really random.
Yeah.
So we both kind of feel like we're getting into filler territory with this issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where I feel like it's starting to dip a little bit. I was complimentary on issue 9. 10 isn't quite doing it for me. But why don't we just start talking about it, and we'll get into these things as we go. So we're starting exactly where we left off, Tiffany. What's going on?
So they're still having their chase from the FOWL Eggmen in Steelbeak's flying car, and they're zooming back and forth, and Darkwing's trying to figure out how to work the weapon system, and he has extreme luck, and every button he pushes is some crazy weapon. Like the first one is a giant cannon, and then 2 punching bags and a giant fly swatter.
Mm-hmm. Also, the first button he presses gives him a sandwich.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It's important.
It's important because it becomes a really strange runner in the entire issue. And he's also flying this thing because remember, Steelbeak he's not knocked out because he says he was about to pass out, but he's still talking. But Darkwing has to fly this thing, and we know Darkwing can't fly. He flies about as good as Scrooge McDuck can drive. And we get a very, very blatant shout out to a Disney movie. So they fly around a ridge, and the car disguises itself as Cusco as the llama. And the Eggmen fly around it, look confused, and then leave, and then it turns back into the car. Yeah. Definitively Dangerous throws a bit more dialogue that makes it a little bit clever. Steelbeak says, push the new groove button. And then makes a comment that he was wondering why FOWL was heavy into llama farming or something like that. What do you think of this reference? Usually I'm kind of cool with these. This one seems a little indulgent.
Yeah, I don't really like it. It seems like filler. I feel like this whole chase scene could have probably been done in 1 page.
But if this was a cartoon, it would have been cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So Steelbeak and Darkwing fly off, and then we get a scene, which is super rare because these characters never really have scenes together, of Launchpad and Morgana. So she shows up in his office. I like that Scrooge's cargo plane is seen as a model on his desk. So what is the conversation, at least in the Boom version, what's the conversation between Launchpad and Morgana like?
So Morgana walks in and asks Launchpad if he's heard from Darkwing. And he says, he said he wanted to be alone. And she says, oh, he seemed like he was in such a good mood. And she said that she got brushed off. and that she's really worried because there's all this talk in like the magical community about this evil presence, and she shows Launchpad.
And the crystal ball she shows him says, just got a vision of a quote unquote purple pawn. Also, some say DUCKTHULU may rise. Related? Which is important to read that because it's plot important.
Yeah.
So Morgana mentions the launch pad, that if DUCKTHULU does rise, they'll see the first signs of it.
Say what was changed about that?
Oh, I will.
Okay.
She says they'll find the signs in the simple people. So where do they go to check?
The Muddlefoots.
The Muddlefoots. So a little bit was changed for Definitively Dangerous, and it's significant enough that I mentioned it. In the Boom version, it doesn't seem like she realizes Gosalyn's gone. She just left the house to ask Launchpad where Darkwing is, which means she left Gosalyn alone when she was asked to watch her. In Definitively Dangerous, she goes to Launchpad because Gosalyn is missing, and she's worried about her.
Which makes much more sense.
100% better. I think it works so much better that she's panicking because Gosalyn's gone. And that's why she's like opening the doors with her magic, because she just needs to get in there.
Yeah.
I mean, her going to like look for Darkwing, and that's her only reason, seems kind of meddling. Like, Launchpad, have you seen Dark? No, I haven't seen him. This makes more sense.
Yeah.
There are a couple of quick references in the background. There's a framed photo of Scrooge. What I just noticed just now, there's a drink cup from Hercules in the last panel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, see that? Is it the one that Panic was drinking before Hades got pissed at him?
Yeah.
So the Morgana and Launchpad scene continues. There isn't a cut to something else.
There's like I think it's supposed to be Disneyland in the background too, in one of the paintings.
Yeah, we've seen a bunch of that kind of thing before, haven't we?
Yeah.
So they get to the Muddlefoot's house, and then there's a conversation between the two of them that really isn't changed much for Definitively Dangerous, except a comment Launchpad makes about crashing in place of the unicycle joke from the Boom version. What's their conversation go like? I'm not a fan, but what are they talking about here?
So basically, they're casually looking for Darkwing and headed to the Muddlefoots on their way. And Morgana asked Launchpad how do you do this? And Launchpad says that, he's a huge fan of Darkwing and he has adventures and it's not actually putting up with anything. He likes it. And that just basically he idolizes Darkwing.
But like some of the dialogue, especially from Morgana, like she starts the conversation. So why do you do this, Launchpad? Which is, it's like such a weird way to start the conversation. I don't know. Kind
of overly dramatic.
I guess it's just weird to me that because these two never have conversations together, like really ever. Like, can you think of a single scene from any Darkwing episode where the two of them are alone talking to each other?
Yeah, and I like the idea of them spending time together. It's just a little weird.
Speaking of weird, and they use the term weird, they open the front door to the Muddlefoot's house, and Lord, what do we see?
You see a really crazy zombified squidification version of Herb and Binky, and there's like water all over the walls and the floor, and fish and weird stuff everywhere.
Yeah, Binky's hair. This is the first time we see Binky in the comic. She's got like a Nautilus shell hair, which is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tank is playing with a Nintendo DS, which it's so unmistakably a DS.
Oh yeah, and the pattern on Herb's shirt is like DUCKTHULU.
And then we get the first instance of DUCKTHULU for sure.
Yeah.
How do you think that's supposed to be read?
I don't even know because I'm from the Valley, so I'm always gonna see for sure is for sure.
See, the character I think is Janice from the Muppets. For sure.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing either one of those works. So Launchpad and Morgana realize, yeah, DUCKTHULU is something's gonna happen with him. He is gonna rise. So they leave. And then we cut back to some more characters we haven't seen yet. Goslin and Honker. And Goslin is Quiverwing Quack. Great. I would prefer to see her like this than Gosmo Duck. That wasn't working for me. And Honker as the Arrow Kid. So yay, Honker's gonna get a lot of play in the story now. The two of them are, heading towards FOWL's base. And okay, interesting little bit of dialogue that was changed. Honker asks her how she knows it's the base. Goslin says, Dad drove us here accidentally on the way to Splashtown, USA. Instead of Splashtown in Definitively Dangerous, get this. Instead, it was changed to Lester's Possum Park.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. For anybody who's not aware, what movie is that from?
A Goofy movie.
Yeah. Second Goofy movie reference of the night. So the two of them are sneaking in, and they immediately set the alarms off and get attacked by looks like a giant dropping guillotine.
Yeah.
But then we finally cut back to Darkwing and Steelbeak, and Darkwing is dragging Steelbeak's body across 4 different panels, and his head is dragging across the ground because his beak is so heavy.
Yeah.
Might be my funniest gag in the comic because it's taking its time.
Yeah.
And it works. I think it's funny. What happens next, Tiffany? Oh, this is significant in terms of things that were changed.
So then Steelbeak says, "You've never seen the main room, have you? Well, get ready for this." And he flips a switch and you see a 2-page panel of the FOWL headquarters main room.
So in Boom, it's a large room. There's some monitor banks, a few open windows looking out into the water. There's like a missile or something off to the right. We get our requisite James Silvani shout outs. There's R2D2's head, C3PO's arm, some Taurus Bulba stuff, some other robots that look vaguely like Cylons, and another one from maybe Star Wars kind of. But this 2-page spread, he went back and completely redrew it for Definitively Dangerous. Like, more chairs and monitor banks, more nuclear warheads. The color palette was completely changed. Less references, because by the time we get to Joe Books, Silvani was kind of knocking that out. I don't know. How do you feel about the so many references versus not having any references at all, Tiff? What do you prefer?
I don't know. I think I like having all the references, but I guess I prefer it when they're subtle. When they're super in your face, it gets kind of overwhelming.
Well, we get a very subtle one in the Definitively Dangerous version. That's probably one of the deepest Disney cuts possible. On one of the warheads in the background, there's a tiny, tiny little picture of Satan, but it's a very specific Satan. It's from a Disney silly symphony called Hell's Bells.
Awesome.
Which I'm sure 95% of our listeners went like, what? Because you're not finding that on Disney Plus. Okay, so moving on from that, what's Darkwing's reaction to all of this?
He's shocked because he didn't realize that FOWL was so high tech, and he can't believe that he went up against them when they were so advanced.
Speaking of high tech, Steelbeak gets into a device that instantly heals him. I want something like that.
I know.
Oh, the bottom panel on that particular page There's a very random little Donald Duck insignia on one of the machines.
Oh yeah, weird. I didn't even.
Silvani.
They took the time to color it and everything too.
It's got his blue hat and everything. So we get another page in which Silvani went back for Joe Books and changed everything because Steelbeak is showing Darkwing a variety of foul weapons, and as he shows them to him, he imagines himself in like a 007 getup with like a white jacket, red shirt, no mask, using these
Duck.
yeah, I should have said 00 Duck, yeah. Using the weapons on people. But in the revised art, Steelbeak is demonstrating the weapons on Darkwing, which is so much funnier.
Yeah, and I also think that for younger readers, it might be a little difficult to understand the original version.
Maybe if they had taken the panels and like lined them as a thought bubble.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't read well in the Boom version. I'll give it this, though. He manages to sneak in TikTok Croc from Peter Pan.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think those Aborigines probably wouldn't have flown today.
Yeah.
The ones shooting out the blow darts. And another sandwich reference. Oh, and speaking of reference, Steelbeak pulls out the most dangerous invention of all and isn't able to show it to Darkwing. But what is the most dangerous invention?
A Winnie the Pooh doll.
I wonder what the heck that thing does. So we're about to meet a brand new character who both of us are kind of conflicted on. Who's this new character, Tiffany?
Her name is Femme Appeal, which
You
is
gotta be kidding me.
a play on Emma Peel from the old 1961 Avengers series.
But it's also a double joke because the character's inclusion is supposed to have more female appeal.
Yep.
So, really clever, as Mo would say. So he painted the dirt. Really clever. We don't really get to know Femme Appeal very much. She doesn't end up making a really strong impression. But what are your initial thoughts on her?
I mean, I love the old Avengers show, so I guess at first I was excited, like, oh, cool, that's an awesome reference to something. But yeah, I'm not super into her.
She's also a furry's dream come true because we didn't mention she's a fox.
Yeah.
Which is not a species that's native to Darkwing Duck.
Yeah, that's another kind of weird thing.
That's a tailspin species. That isn't a Darkwing Duck species.
Yep. I think that it was just supposed to be another joke, like she's a fox.
And Darkwing, and this is a kind of a joke that probably wouldn't fly now. Darkwing spends 3 panels in a state of horny shock.
Yep.
And Silvani increases that in Definitively Dangerous by changing his eyes into hearts. Yikes. There is some exposition going. Yes, Tiff?
In an issue that has Morgana in it, no less.
And we're trying to figure out if this comic was an episode of the show made in 1991, who would be voicing Femme Appeal? Both of us are having a hard time saying anybody other than Kath.
Yeah.
I can't think of a voice actress back then who would be good for a role like this. But I couldn't imagine it being Kath because she would have been doing Morgana. I don't think April Winchell would have worked. So maybe Kath doing her Lola Bunny voice. So there is some exposition. What's happening in this sequence, Tiffany?
So they're running to wait, where are they running to?
They're getting to a secret lair.
Oh, they're trying to get to, and they come across a bookshelf and they're trying to find some answers in there, and Darkwing says it's like looking for a needle in a pile of old boring needles.
Because the books don't have labels on them. Darkwing even says, have they ever heard of a label maker?
Yeah, and Darkwing manages to grab the right book, and the bookshelf flips around, and they go into the underground lair.
And then Steelbeak mentions down here is where they created the Eggman program, which is why I'm starting to think the Eggmen are clones.
Yeah.
They are absolutely clones. Those big beefy guys don't exist in nature. So there were two level of FOWL agents, the low-level agents. One was the Eggmen, and I can't believe we're doing this joke a second time. The other was the... you can say it.
Walrus.
Cuckoo Kachoo. And bursting through a wall is a giant walrus robot. Okay. So, what?
I think it's weird, the coloring in this too.
Why is that?
I don't know, the yellow and the green. It's weird to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of yellow in this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Darkwing's the one. Darkwing actually says "cuckoo kachoo."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not just me making a joke. This time Darkwing says it. So Darkwing jumps in front of.
Weird looking. Sorry, the robot is really weird looking.
It is a weird looking robot. So Darkwing jumps in front of everybody, gets ready to do duck foo, but then pulls out the gas gun and says, "And gas gun foo."
Isn't it quack foo?
First of all, it should be saying quack foo. It was changed that he just jumps in front of them, pulls out the gas gun, and only says "suck gas, evildoers." Doesn't get done saying it before he's smashed, which that is so much more true to Darkwing Duck, obviously. Yep. And I do like the drawing of Darkwing as an accordion.
Yeah.
Actually, he looks more like one of those old toys where it's these tubes that you can stretch out. We have those at work, and the kids love them. They love those things. And then the robot starts chasing them.
He has laser fingers.
Laser fingers. That's kind of Mechagodzilla-ish, isn't it?
Yeah.
He says, "I hate walruses. I really do." For whatever reason, in Definitively Dangerous, he says, "I really hate robots." Both work. I mean, he does have a walrus as an adversary. So we're wrapping things up with Goslin and Honker. Take us home, Tiffany. How does the Goslin and Honker plot wrap up for now?
So they're still running through all the crazy booby traps, and there's a buzzsaw. There's a 5,000-pound weight. There's another briefcase with TikTok inside of it.
Can I just say, they're getting chased by a buzzsaw. They're getting, the weight falls down. Their faces are drawn very neutral. But when that TikTok croc pops out of the suitcase, look at their eyes.
Yeah.
Goslin loses her irises completely. And then what happens?
And then Honker says, "I could go for a sandwich right about now." Another sandwich reference. And they there's a trap door that opens up from underneath them, and they start falling in the darkness. And they land, and they're in another area with a bunch of high-tech gear, and you see someone standing there that says, "Good thing I brought some help," and it is revealed that it's Ammonia Pine with Hot Shot and Fly Girl behind her.
Groovy. I don't like these characters, but I still think they're funny.
Yeah. I
think one of my favorite bits in Heavy Mental is when they're trying to gain psychic powers by just feeling the air, and they're so stupid that they can't do it, and he's like, "Denver omelet."
And he's squeezing what's his name's arm?
Synapse's arm. It's definitely a tub of lard.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I turned to this page, 11 years ago, and I saw these two.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were going to come back.
I didn't get to talk on that episode of the show, but I think that episode is animated really crazily, but I think it's pretty funny.
You know what? Me and Will, actually, it was one of those occasions where we both were in 100% agreement about the quality of the episode. It was a good script, because I think it was a Campbell and Swinland script. And they're great writers. That's a good script. But we also have to remember that was also an early episode that just aired late, because it introduced Cerebellum. It was a good script, but
Yeah.
they shot that one over to freelance in New Zealand. It must have been sent over to the Australia studio, who probably didn't have time for it, laid it out, and then gave it to freelance, because freelance isn't credited. Australia is. And
Weird.
the same thing happened to one Goof Troop episode, the one that's titled Meanwhile Back at the Ramp. It went to Australia. They laid it out, because a lot of Heavy Mental has a very Disney Australia feel in the angles and just arrangement of the layouts. But the actual animation went to freelance. And Will said it best: if you can't draw the main character, you shouldn't be working on the show. Because their Darkwing was the worst drawn character in the entire episode.
So weird in that episode.
And then Freelance is the one who was responsible for the very worst Animaniacs cartoons. If it was a Katie Kaboom or a Rita and Run and it sucked, it probably was because of Freelance. So yeah, that's our Heavy Mental discussion, part 2, guys. But okay, so issue 10, Foul Disposition, part 2. Next week we'll have part 3. More of the same, pretty much. More Femme Appeal, more Walrus Robot, more Ammonia Pine, and more talk about DUCKTHULU. Yeah, everyone's favorite character, Ammonia Pine. At least Amplegrime isn't around. So, what would you rate this one?
I'm gonna actually give it a 3.
Okay, why is that?
I think that it's so obviously filler. There's only like a couple of things. I feel like it could be like a couple of pages and you could get the same.
Yeah.
All you would need is like a few pages. I think that, again, the colors are a little off. I don't know what it is exactly. It doesn't look like the whole, like, everything else that happened before it. I think some of the dialogue is weird. But again, it's so hard to rate anything super low for me because James Silvani's art is so good.
His art saves this comic.
Yeah.
Like, whenever the writing takes a nosedive, the art still saves it.
Yep. There's a few parts that I like. I like all the stuff with Quiverwing and Arrow Kid. Yeah, that's it.
You know what? I was gonna go lower than you, but I realized there are other issues in just this story arc I like less, and I don't want to just keep going lower and lower, because I don't think that would be fair. So I'm gonna end up just giving it a 3 as well. Honestly, for all the same reasons you did. I do like the Goslin and Honker, the Quiverwing stuff. I like that quick Muddlefoot scene.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the Darkwing and Steelbeak stuff is funny, at least toward the end. But I don't like Femme Appeal, and the Launchpad and Morgana stuff is awkward. But
yeah.
the comic, this story arc just gets more awkward from here. So I didn't want to rate this one too low. So I thought 3 would be fair. Let's wait until we get a little bit deeper into the story, maybe next week, to rate Femme Appeal, because we haven't seen enough of her yet.
All right.
We're not gonna rate anybody today. So that said, then we are done for this week, and I guess we're the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. Find us on all podcast apps: Stitcher, Spotify, Google, iTunes, Facebook, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and bringing everything full circle. Or watch us on YouTube, and then when you finish watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. That helps. Then go check out any of the the channels that we mentioned, and maybe you'll find something new that you like. I recommend starting with Defunctland because it's still Disney adjacent, and I think that would be a good starting point. But a lot of the ones you mentioned, Tiffany, are great too. You can't go wrong with any of the things we mentioned. So, Tiffany, before we go, how can everybody find you? Anything you want to plug tonight?
Yeah, since we're talking about YouTube.
I knew it.
I'm actually going to talk about my other channel I usually don't share, which is because I started it basically as a troll to YouTube. It was just making fun of the silliness of YouTube. But I might as well plug that, and that's CarnyTube on YouTube. And then I also have Radioactivity, which is my regular channel.
You just posted something as we're recording this today on CarnyTube.
Yep.
Pancake in a cup?
Yep.
Okay, so guys, go to that channel and watch that.
I guess.
All the Darkwing Duck fans are gonna run to you talk about pancakes in a cup.
And flaming hot Cheeto mac and cheese.
Oh, that stuff is not good. I tried it once. It was not, why is everything Cheetos these days? Especially Burger King does like mac and Cheetos, and you get I like Cheetos, but like not in mac and cheese and French fries and stuff. Food is so weird.
Yeah.
Bring back my pizzeria chips, Keebler. That's all I want. And my Ninja Turtle cereal and my Ecto Cooler and my
Mr. T cereal.
Huh? Which one?
Mr. T cereal.
My Nintendo cereal with Mario in one bag and Zelda in the other one. My Pac-Man cereal. Maybe my Garfield fruit snacks.
Oh yeah.
If I had a time machine, I'd bring all this food back and get so fat.
I used to always have Darkwing Duck fruit snacks. As a kid.
I didn't know those existed. Darkwing Duck stuff was hard to find as a kid. Like a lot of the stuff that a lot of people we know are just randomly digging up out of nowhere, like the macaroni and cheese and like the fruit snacks. I never saw that stuff as a kid, or I would have had tons of it.
My dad knew that I loved it, so he would get me like multiple packs of it.
Disney wasn't good at marketing these shows.
Yeah.
They absolutely were not. They still aren't.
Yeah, I don't think they want to put that much money into their TV shows for some reason.
Oh, Disney, you have so much money, but you're not giving me what I want. So anyway, we'll catch you guys next week, and until then, stay dangerous.
Bye.
Cuckoo, cuckoo.